Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the wildest online scams in recent memory. A story about manipulation and heartbreak that played out right on our phones. We're going to break down exactly how this whole thing worked, step by step.
I mean, this quote right here pretty much says it all, doesn't it? He met women on Tinder and stole millions from them. Just wow. But the real question is how? How on earth does someone turn a simple dating app into a tool for a multi-million-dollar con? Well, that's exactly what we're going to unravel. All right, so where does a story like this even start? Well, a scam this big doesn't just happen overnight. No way. It has to be built on a really strong foundation. And in this case, that foundation was creating a character, a persona that was just completely irresistible.
And get this, he didn't just say he was rich. He claimed to be the son of a billionaire diamond tycoon. I mean, talk about picking a backstory. The diamond business, it's got everything. Glamour, a little bit of danger, and of course, a ton of money. This wasn't just some random lie. It was a carefully crafted identity, one designed to feel aspirational, but, just believable enough.
Okay, so here's the thing. To really sell this illusion, he couldn't just talk about being rich. He had to live it. Every single thing he did, private jets, fancy hotels, designer everything, it was all part of the show. You see these pictures and it creates this kind of halo effect, right? Because he looks so successful, you just assume he's trustworthy in every other part of his life. But the whole time, you gotta be asking the big question, who's actually paying for all this stuff? And yeah, we're definitely gonna get to that. But a flashy Instagram feed and a cool story isn't enough to get someone to hand over their life savings. Not even close. The next step, and this is absolutely crucial, was to build trust. And not just any trust, but deep emotional trust. And to do it fast. He had to turn a complete stranger from an app into someone his victims would literally do anything for. So how'd he do it? Well, this wasn't some slow, get-to-know-you kind of romance. It was a full-on whirlwind. It's a classic manipulation tactic, actually, called love bombing. He just overwhelmed them with attention, these crazy extravagant dates. The whole point is to sweep you off your feet so completely that you don't even have a second to stop and think, wait a minute, is this for real? And just look at this timeline. It is absolutely staggering. Day 1, you match on Tinder. By day 7, you're on a first date on a private jet. A month in, he's talking about love, about moving in together. This isn't romance, folks. This is a strategy. He's basically taking the normal timeline of a relationship and crushing it down into a few weeks. Why? To create this false sense of intimacy. Once you feel that invested, it's so much harder to back out or question things. Okay, so the stage is set. The trust has been built. And just when everything seems like a perfect fairy tale, the whole story changes. This is where the trap is sprung. All of a sudden, the whole narrative shifts from a romance to like a high-stakes thriller. He starts claiming his life is in danger because of his enemies in the diamond business. See what he's doing? He's introducing fear, urgency. Now he's not a con man asking for money. No, he's the victim. He's the hero in trouble, and he desperately needs help from the one person in the world he can trust, which, of course, is them. And this was the absolute masterstroke, the big ask. I can't use my bank accounts. For security, I need your help. It's just brilliant, in a twisted way. He's framing the request for money not as him being broke, but as a smart security measure. Plus, think about it. After he's showered you with all this luxury and attention, you feel like you owe him, right? It's that psychological pull to give something back. He totally weaponized it. So you see, none of this was random. It was a system, a repeatable, 4-step playbook that he could run over and over again. It's all designed to prey on that emotional connection he worked so hard and so fast to build. And look at that last step. That's the kicker. The money he gets is used to fund the whole illusion to impress the next victim. It's a self-funding scam. And that's where you see the real kind of twisted genius of this whole thing. It was basically a Ponzi scheme, but for romance. The money he scammed from one woman was immediately turned around to pay for the private jets and fancy dinners to woo the next one. It was like a perpetual motion machine of fraud, constantly feeding itself. Now, eventually, the whole thing did start to unravel, thanks to some incredibly brave victims who decided to speak out. But what happened next? What were the real-world consequences? what does justice even look like in a case like this? Well, the reality is it's pretty complicated. First off, let's just take a second to let this number sink in. Over $10 million. That's not just a number, that's people's life savings. It's loans they took out. It's their futures. Just gone. Stolen from people all over the world. Okay, so you have that $10 million number in your head. Now compare it to this one. 5. That's how many months he actually served in prison. 5 months. The difference between the crime and the punishment here is just, it's jarring, and for a lot of people, it's really, really hard to swallow. And this slide really lays it all out, doesn't it? The contrast is just, it's stark. On one side, the swindler serves a few months and seems to go right back to his luxury lifestyle. But for the victims, they're left with crippling debt, some facing bankruptcy, and on top of all that, this deep emotional trauma that can stick with you for a lifetime. The imbalance is just staggering. All right, so we've taken this whole scam apart piece by piece. But what's the real takeaway here? What does this mean for any of us who are, trying to navigate online dating today? This is, I think, the most important part of this whole explainer. And let's be crystal clear about one thing. This was not about the victims being stupid or naive. That's not what happened here. These scams prey on trust. They prey on a very fundamental and honestly, a very beautiful human desire to connect with and trust another person. You have to remember, he didn't hack their bank accounts. He hacked their hearts.
So yeah, this whole story is a huge warning. But the point isn't to make us all cynical and afraid to ever trust anyone again. Not at all. Instead, it's a lesson. A really tough one, but a lesson. So what are the practical red flags we can actually look out for to keep ourselves and the people we care about safe?
Okay, so this is it. This is the stuff you really need to remember. Your best defense really is just a healthy dose of skepticism and a little bit of patience. Real relationships, real trust, that stuff takes time to build. So be super wary of any relationship that feels like it's moving at 100 miles an hour. And if a story sounds way too perfect or way too dramatic, it probably is. But the absolute #1 unbreakable rule, it's simple. Never, ever send money to someone you have only met online, period. At the end of the day, as we all look for connection through our screens, knowing how to protect yourself, well, that's the most powerful tool you have. Why does this all matter? Because being aware is the first and most important step to making sure this doesn't happen to you or someone you love.